Hi, my name is Professor Paresh Wankhade, and I'm a professor of management at Agile University. And today, my presentation is going to look at how inclusion and why inclusion is important, but I think more importantly, that to make it work, it needs to be embedded right at the top. And I think in my presentation, I'm going to talk about why leader and leadership plays a very, very key role in bringing the desired change. And why that is important? Because we've seen in the last few years some of the recent external reports around London Fire Brigade, around South Wales, about disturbing behavior around inclusion and how staff feel about it. But to an extent, this is also about bringing change and embedding that change around inclusion at all organizational levels. And my research around crisis and leadership, and I do a lot of work across the emergency services, suggests that leaders and leadership can play a very pivotal role in bringing this desired change. Because inclusion and change go together. And with the current fiscal climate, in the climate of austerity, in a very uniform service where ranks and hierarchy are still important, I think a lot of decision-making tools and skills and opportunity rest largely with the senior leadership. And I think that's where the change begins. So I'm going to talk about why inclusion is important, how it can be embedded in some key things around some operational decisions, some leadership decisions, because I think what we need is, in many ways, a very open and a safe climate for staff to come and talk and air their concerns, their differences, and so on. Now, this is not new, sadly. So if we go back to 1999, before 2000, we had the service report, HMIC report, which talks about challenges around inclusion. We didn't have anything because the service inspectorate was disbanded between 2000 and 2017. And only after 2017, after the Police and Crime Act, when the new HMIC FRC inspectorate regime was set up, we started having those conversations. But having said that, that didn't mean that it went away. These challenges are there. And to be honest, if you look at the police, and I do a lot of work with police and ambulance services, these challenges are there as well. So I think what we need to do is work together. And as a researcher, as an academic, I'm very, very keen to work with this service, with the sector, to share some of my experience and expertise in kind of bringing that change. So in my presentation, I'm going to give an example of Titanic, how Titanic, what did we learn or what could we learn? So our normal perception about Titanic is that it hit an iceberg and it sank. But if I present about the life-saving potential of that iceberg, because it was a fairly stable structure, 400 feet long by 200 feet wide, and it was quite cold, and so the Titanic could have navigated closer to the iceberg, but because we look at iceberg as a hazard, our perception in the mind is that we need to avoid it. But if I present that the risk as an opportunity of a life-saving potential, because 60 years before this crisis, in Gulf of Ireland, more than 150 people got saved by climbing on an ice floe. So I'm going to talk about what Karl Duncker, a very famous German psychologist, called it as a functional fixedness. Thinking outside the box, looking at the problem, but also thinking an opportunity to resolve that problem. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that. But at the same time, I think to me, it's almost a moral duty for leaders, senior leaders, to provide that culture of openness, culture of a very safe environment for staff to air and work together. Because we are aware of the fact that the workforce composition in the fire service is not representative of the community it serves. So if 96% of firefighter workforce is male and white, I think it creates a problem. And also it creates a problem for getting people from the ethnic minority communities to look at it as a potential good employer. So we need to work at all fronts. I think I'm not sitting here and making comments that nothing has been done so far. I think we made progress, but more needs to be done. And at the same time, I think the role of academia is to work together with professionals and practitioners to bring that desired change. And I'm really confident that AFSA is providing that safe space even to talk about some of those things with very senior leadership. And I believe that hopefully these conversations are contributing largely in a positive way to bring that desired change where inclusion becomes one of the key management priorities. And it's like business as usual. We don't have to talk about what we need to be very inclusive. That is how we do work. I would really like in the future of fire services to kind of almost present an example. No, we do it. This is imprinted in everything we do. That's our mission, that's our values, that's our goal. And I think once we start looking at it in a positive way, perhaps we're going to bring some change. I think I have to compliment AFSA, to be honest, because what it has done, as it has almost provided that voice to a large group of staff and people, but more importantly, it has provided voice on a policy debate on an issue which is so important about why we need to be inclusive, because inclusion brings, as I said earlier, inclusion means change and bringing a cultural change, and we cannot do that unless the whole organization is on board. And that's why I came back and I said earlier that leaders and leadership play an important role. So support network like AFSA is great, and I think what the sector should do is work more closely with AFSA. I'm also a trustee at the Fire Service Charity, and I can proudly say that we have supported AFSA in some of their work in terms of granting that research money to them. So the Smoke and Mirrors report, AFSA, was funded by my trust. So I'm proud to share that. So we need more of AFSA. We need more greater kind of integration and perhaps involvement of AFSA in policy levels, not only at the operational level, but also at the policy level, at the level of NFC, at the level of ministerial oversight. Because AFSA, perhaps I think the key for AFSA is to give that platform where people can, like me, academics, senior leaders, operational staff can come and provide and share their concerns without any fear of retribution or fear of being kind of seen as somebody who can create trouble. So I think I really want to compliment AFSA, and I want to thank AFSA for giving me this opportunity to come and share my work across the emergency services today.